Welcome back, everybody, to the 503rd Legion. Today we are with what I may think is the strongest ramp deck in the game right now. And I'm going to explain that as I go through this deck profile. So today we are on Count Dooku, Face of the Confederacy, with Droid Manufactory as our base. Droid Manufactory allows for a lot of advantage, especially with Dooku's Exploit 3 ability on attack once he's deployed. It just allows for really big plays, really strong turns. So this deck is definitely more along the lines of a combo / ramp deck. And it can get pretty nasty in those later turns once you build yourself into some very strong troops. Droid Manufactory against decks like Sabine has high potential to get you killed. So your goal with this deck is to ramp as quickly as possible, slam out those big units, and just essentially control the board the entire game through. So let's go ahead and get into the deck profile. But before we do, we are trying to grow the channel and things are going pretty darn well. So thank you guys so much for all the support. Please leave a like and subscribe on our videos. It really helps us out. This will be our 11th video and we're chugging along. We're really enjoying ourselves. Set 3, the release has been awesome. There's been a lot of new decks peeking their heads into the meta. So it's just been really interesting and really fun. So let's go ahead, get into this deck profile. So we are on Count Dooku, Face of the Confederacy with Droid Manufactory. What Count Dooku does is, before he's deployed, action, play a separatist card from your hand. It gains Exploit 1, which allows for some pretty epic turns early on in the game. He deploys on 7 resources. When he's deployed, he has Overwhelm as his keyword. He's a 5/9 with, on attack, the next separatist card you played this phase gains Exploit 3, which is incredible, which is why Droid Manufactory is so nice, especially in his deployed turn, because you get essentially the resources to exploit for such a big exploit keyword. So getting Exploit 3 and instantly getting material to exploit to play those big units is freaking awesome. So let's dive right into this deck profile. So we're starting with 3 copies of Obedient Vanguard. It's a 1/1 with Raid 1. When defeated, you may give a trooper unit +2/+2 for this phase. Separatist Droid Trooper. It's a 1-drop with Raid 1, which is awesome. We're playing a lot of troopers, so the trooper unit boost for a +2/+2 comes in handy a lot, especially since we're generating so many battle droid tokens, which are all troopers. So Obedient Vanguard, really nice to play for a 1 cost. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the villainy aspect, which I wish it did. And I'll explain why later on in our deck profile. But Obedient Vanguard is just a nice 1-drop, 1/1 with Raid 1 for 1. Nice exploit material. That's when it's exploited, it boosts a trooper unit, so it's pretty sweet. Next, we have 3 copies of Poggle the Lesser, Archduke of the Stalgason Hive. When you play another unit, you may exhaust this unit. If you do, create a battle droid token. So he's a 2-drop villainy command. Essentially, this is just trying to create a bunch of exploit material, right? So Poggle the Lesser actually is more of a threat than you might realize. I've had this card vanquished even. I've had it had takedown used on it. People are really scared of this card, and it can get out of hand, so I kind of understand, right? You're only paying 2 resources for a decent-sized booty that can get you more materials to exploit with for Dooku. So I understand, why people are scared of this card getting out of hand, because it definitely can. Most of the time, this usually eats a removal spell or a removal card, a removal event, whatever you want to call it. But if this card does get to go off, it can be very effective in what it does. Next, we are getting into the ramp part of the deck. So it's 3 copies of Super Laser Technician. Obviously, you're going to play this in pretty much any command villainy deck. This card is just incredible. When defeated, you may put this unit into play as a resource and ready it. It's 2/1 for 3. The nice part is when you exploit this and use it as cost for a bigger unit, guess what? You get a resource. So it's pretty freaking sweet. We love ramping. Ramping as fast as you freaking can in this deck is important because you only have 24 life with Droid Manufactory, and Count Dooku wants you to ramp so he can deploy and exploit your big units. So next, we're on 3 copies of Battle Droid Escort. It's a 1/1 for 3 that says when played and when defeated, create a Battle Droid token. Great card to exploit using it. Separatist Droid Trooper, so it can be boosted with Obedient Vanguard. yeah, it's just for the cost of 3 and being in pure villainy, it's really nice to just like get a bunch of bodies to exploit with, right? So obviously you see kind of like what the game plan of Dooku is. It's pretty darn transparent. Like you're telegraphing exactly what you're doing, especially if you're playing something as aggressive as droid manufactory. So yeah, Battle Droid escort, very, very pivotal key part of the deck. Next, probably our best overall unit is Droid Commando. While you control another Separatist unit, this unit gains Ambush, which means it can ready and attack a unit once it's played. Command Villainy, so you can get this off of Vader, which we are playing. It's a 4/3 for 3, which is awesome stat line, as well as a 4/3 for 3 that gets Ambush while you control another Separatist, which you're pretty much always going to because of the amount of tokens you make. Yeah, this card's like probably the best just pure low-cost unit in the deck. So Droid Commando, very important, very good card. Okay, so now we get into the crazy stuff. So we are on 3 copies of Patrolling AAT, which is just a naked vanilla 5-mana 4/5 Sentinel Separatist Vehicle tank. And we're also on 3 copies of B2 Legionnaires, which is a 5-drop pure command 5/4 Separatist Droid Trooper with Sentinel and Overwhelm. These are for those turns where you start with, so you start on turn 1, right? You play Droid Deployment, which obviously we're playing being that we're in a Dooku ramp deck. You play Droid Deployment, then on your next turn, you use Dooku's ability, give a unit in a Separatist unit that you play, exploit 1. You exploit one of your tokens and tap out your 3 resources, and you can play either one of these Sentinels. B2 Legionnaires is probably the better one because unfortunately it does die to Fel the Dragon, which is bad. But it has Overwhelm keyword, has 5 strength, as well as it's a trooper. So you can boost this one with Obedient Vanguard if Obedient Vanguard is used as exploit material. This one, not a trooper, so not as good. But the 5 health is like, for those that play the game, like you know that the difference between 4 and 5 health is actually huge. Like it's much easier to get rid of a 4 health unit than it is a 5. So both of these are good in their own right. And you definitely want to play all 6 because Droid Manufactory, as I mentioned previously, if you don't be careful, you can die pretty fast with 24 health. So having these big Sentinel units that you can get out stupidly early is like very, very important. Next, we are on a non-Separatist unit, Darth Vader commanding the First Legion. Just one of the best villainy green cards villainy command cards that you can have. I mean, I love playing Villainy Green because I get to play this card. I say that every deck profile I do with Villainy Green, and I love this card to death. It is just so good. Ambush on a 5/7 that gets you any amount of Villainy units that cost 3 or less combined, played for free when it gets played by searching the top 10 is just like so incredible. So this card, I mean, every time I play a Command Villainy deck, I'm probably going to be playing this. I just love this card to death. Next, we're on 1 copy of Count Dooku, Darth Tyrannus. He is a Vigilance Villainy unit, so we are paying his additional aspect penalty of 2. So in our deck, he costs 9, but because he's a Separatist, we can discount that cost by using Exploit. So a lot of the times you're playing this for under cost, even though it costs an additional 2. Having a shielded 5/4 that when played kills something or removes something is just really good. I also really like the art of this card, and I think Count Dooku's sweet. So realistically, we just need bigger Separatist stuff that have an impact on the board that we can exploit for. So this is like one of the payoffs, quote unquote, that we can do in our Exploit Dooku deck. We're on 1 copy of Battle Droid Legion. In my testing, I just haven't drawn into my exploit payoffs, which can make it difficult to push through established boards. Battle Droid Legion is really nice because it's a 6/5, so a decent stat line, already has the exploit keyword, which you can increase because exploit stacks. So you can give it more of a discount with exploit cost, and then when defeated, it creates 3 Battle Droid tokens. So it's also a trooper, which is nice for Obedient Vanguard. So Battle Droid Legion, we're going to test it out. I don't think this card is exceptional, but I think it's good, and you just need more payoffs. You could argue that this should be another Count Dooku Darth Tyrannus, but I'm testing this out. I like the fact that it floats into 3 more exploit materials, so we're going to keep testing this out and see if it's any good. 3 copies of Malevolence. Again, another unit that we are paying aspect penalty on because it's in Vigilance Villainy. This card is just incredible. Already has Exploit 4, it's the biggest exploit unit in the game. Restore 2, because you're at 24 life, you really need that life gain. And also prevents a unit from attacking and lowers its damage back. So if you attack into it, which you're going to do in a pure command deck essentially, making it so it doesn't damage you as much back is like super important. This can also hit leaders, so making leaders not able to attack and giving them a reduction in their power because they usually have a high amount of power is like super good. And you can also make the exploit, like with Dooku, you can make this up to exploit 7, which means you're just like playing it for free and then some if you want. So yeah, I mean, Malevolence is just really good. And we're not punished too much because we're just making so many tokens. So Malevolence is like one of the best exploit payoffs. This is probably the best exploit payoff in 3 copies of the Invisible Hand. Separatist Vehicle, capital ship. Has no exploit keyword, but you can give it one with Dooku because playing the Separatist card, you can give it exploit. When played, create 4 battle droid tokens. That is so much exploit damage on the follow-up. I mean, like, you can just exploit all those tokens for the next thing you want to play, for a Malevolence if you want to play it. So yeah, this is just like disgusting. Creating 4 battle droid tokens so you can exploit with them, or so you can use it on attack to deal high amounts of damage in single turns is just like super, super good. I love this card. I love just like swarming and overwhelming the field with the Separatist cards. It feels really, really nice when this resolves, and you ramp into it so fast in this deck. It's just like super, super good. So yeah, the Invisible Hand is probably the 2nd best card in the deck behind Vader. We are on 1 copy of Devastator. This is not a Separatist, so we have to ramp into it. It's a 10-drop, 10/10, Sentinel level round 1 played. You may deal damage to a unit equal to the number of resources you control, so it like removes something. Sometimes you just need this to keep you alive. Like you need the Sentinel keyword because space units have been punching your face a lot. So Devastator just like, it's so good, especially in like pure command. So yeah, this card is like really, really important. I'm considering playing even more copies of it, but it's not a Separatist, so you can't discount it all that much. So you have to ramp into it up to 10, which is hard, especially when you're only starting with 24 life, because if you get to that point in the game, you're probably really, really low on life, which is terrifying. So yeah, I don't know what I want to do with Devastator. I definitely want to be playing 1. I don't know if I want to play more. Next is the card that I have decided on playing because of my testing, and that is Private Manufacturing. Draw 2 cards. If you control no token units, put 2 cards from your hand at the bottom of your deck in any order. This says draw 2 in this deck because you're always having tokens. And the problem that you run into with this deck, because you're ramping so hard and exploiting and dumping your hand, essentially, you run out of gas. And if you don't draw into your payoffs, you've run out of gas with a bunch of weenie units. So you need to draw into your payoffs, and that's what this card is doing. In my testing, this has been like so much better than any of the alternatives. Like the only other alternative I would consider would be I Am Your Father, which you don't always get to draw from, which is not bad because most of the time you're removing something, but I would just rather have the draw for less cost because most of the time, knowing that you're on Dooku and knowing that they can kill you quickly because your base is at 24 life, they're not going to allow you to draw with I Am Your Father. They're just going to lose the unit and like move on to the next big payoff. So I like this card over I Am Your Father, but it's definitely consideration to play it. Next is another ramp spell, baby. 3 copies of Droid Deployment. Create 2 battle droid tokens, then you exploit them for bigger stuff. Don't need to explain that one too much. You're going to see this card a lot this format. 3 copies of Merciless Contest. This is basically Power of the Dark Side in this deck. If you don't control any units, your opponent has to defeat something they control, or if you have a bunch of battle droid tokens, you just defeat a token you don't care about, and they have to defeat something they probably care about. So this card is just Power of the Dark Side, sort of. In some occasions it's better, in most occasions it's worse, but this card is just really, really good. So next, 3 copies of Resupply. This is the best, like the fastest ramp deck in the game, in my opinion, because we can ramp using like droid deployment and stuff into our bigger payoffs with Dooku. So we're playing all of the villainy command ramp spells as well as like droid deployment and stuff. So this deck ramps like super fast. 3 copies of command. Like I said, you're running out of gas in this deck a lot, so a lot of the times you put this into play as a resource, or if you're like late in the game, you give 2 experience tokens to something, or you deal damage to something, and then you usually return a unit from your discard pile to your hand because you want to like keep playing your big payoffs. So command in this deck another ramp spell. Like I said, this is probably the fastest, strongest ramp deck in the game. So yeah, we like Command a lot. And last but certainly not least, 3 copies of Overwhelming Barrage. You can get big payoffs early in the game, and this makes your big payoffs remove a lot of things as well as gives them a +2/+2 boost. So Overwhelming Barrage is definitely the best removal spell when you're playing double command villainy. So yeah, that is the deck profile, guys. Please let me know if you enjoyed it. I have really liked this deck in testing. I think it's really fun to play with. It really does feel like you're playing a Separatist deck where you're just like throwing units at your opponent and you're just trying to overwhelm them with pure numbers, and then your giant Separatist vehicles come in and your Count Dooku hits the battlefield and removes something, and it's just like, it's so thematic and so fun to play. So if you really like the deck profile, if you really think that this looks interesting to you, give it a shot. I bet you that you'll like the deck a lot too. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and may the Force be with you. Thanks, guys.